Hello everyone, welcome to another video discussion. Today I wanted to react to a video made by Boogard or Boogard, I don't know how it's pronounced, called One Tip for Every Character in Tekken 8. And of course, me being a Dragunon main, I was interested in what he had to say about Dragunon. Of course, I already watched this video. I decided to make this reaction because I wanted to clarify a few things throughout this video. So let's jump immediately into the video.
Your character's so
increase the volume.
And he's so bad. More Dragunon players need to be abusing forward 3 and 1+2. This is unironically one of his best moves, and I just don't see people use it or talk about it enough.
Okay, this is going to be like the first part of the video. He's gonna talk about mainly forward 3 1+2, and he's gonna talk about slide a bit. But he's gonna start with forward 3 1+2.
-3.
And he said that he doesn't understand. Can I increase the quality? I'm sorry, this is like potato quality. And he said he doesn't understand why more Dragunon players are using forward 3 1+2. And I'm guilty as well of not using forward 3 1+2. I think it's a very difficult move to place because first off, I think abusing is not the right word to use for this move. On paper, it sounds like an insane move, but you need to understand that in between the first and the second hit, you can be interrupted. So this is not safe. There are ways you can interrupt Dragunon with a quick 10-frame counter string. You can power crush, or you can even parry if you want to. But what also you can do, you can sidestep. You can sidestep the second hit and launch Dragunon. So there are ways to make this move launch punishable. So abuse is not exactly the word that I would use for a move like this. This can be very dangerous if you're playing against a strong player.
Unbelievably strong.
And
-3.
It sounds great on paper.
No one's ready
-3,
for
sure.
No one is ready for it. Again, super long range, like incredibly long range.
Sure.
I don't actually. I think if I remember correctly, can you hit confirm it or not? Yeah, you can't really hit confirm it in this game, but
no,
you can
can't.
heat dash out of it, and you get a full combo.
Sure.
And again, so much range, safe on block, mid. One of his best moves. I don't see Dragunon players.
Yes, it's safe on block, but there are ways to make it launch punishable. You can sidestep the second hit and launch Dragunon. But I think that the biggest problem with that move, and the biggest problem that I have with that move is that, yes, it has incredible range. That's true. It has good range, not incredible. That's good range. But it's usually around, like, you can use it around range 2. That's the maximum range you can use that move. At range 3, it will start to whiff. And the problem is that when you stand at that range, you realize that at that range, you are vulnerable to a variety of different attacks that are faster than forward 3 1+2. Once you are at range 2, you are vulnerable to stuff like Demon Paws, pseudo-Demon Paws, like for example, these forward 3, Pulse Blast, or Horang's Peacemaker, or Peacekeeper, I don't remember the name, 3, I think it's the notation. But you're vulnerable to all of these super fast mids that usually are heat engagers, just like forward 3 1+2. But they're faster. They're gonna outspeed your forward 3 1+2. And that is a bit of an issue. Or you're vulnerable to stuff like Brian's 3+4, Jin's forward 4. All of these mids that are generally faster than forward 3 1+2. And because of that, it becomes a bit complicated, because you have to place that move at a range where the opponent can hit you with a lot of stuff that can hurt you bad. And to put this into perspective, considering that, for example, a move like CD4, you can place that move even at range 3. Like if you do a prolonged sneak dash, you can place that move at range 3, where most Demon Paws, they will whiff at that range. Most Demon Paws, you can't set a Demon Paw when your opponent has range 3, is too far away from you. But with Dragunon, because CD4 has such an incredible range, you can just place it there, you do a prolonged sneak dash, and then you release the 4, and you get the sneak 4. And also it has better tracking, and it's not interruptible in between, like forward 3 1+2, so you're safe, you're completely safe. Forward 3 1+2 is unfortunately steppable. The second hit is steppable, and Another problem is also the fact that I think it heavily depends on the matchup. Like I said, if you're playing against Kazuya, you're playing against Jin, you're playing against Lee, these characters with a very strong neutral, range 2 attacks. Yeah, it's a bit hard to really abuse that move. You have to use it against an opponent like, for example, King. If he's not using a lot of shoves, for example, you can use it against him, maybe. It's the same thing, honestly, with CD1 with Dragunon. CD1 is such an incredible move. It's a high, safe on block, natural hit launcher, only -3 on block. But when you are against a Mishima, attempting that is suicide. Because every time you try to go with CD1, they're just gonna electric. And usually it will outspeed your CD1 every single time. Like if you play Dragunon a little bit and you play against Mishimas, you'll realize it's a really bad idea to try to apply that move, unless you're playing against a character, for example, like I said, King. I really like to use CD1 against King, because usually King doesn't have that oppressive neutral that certain characters have, like Kazuya, Jin, most Mishimas, and but even Lee with 443, etc. So yeah, it's not a move that you can really abuse, because it can be countered. They can interrupt you in between, they can step you, and it's hard to apply because it has good range, but it doesn't have like it doesn't have as much range as you might think, and you have to place it at a range where you are vulnerable to much stronger attacks like Demon Paws, and usually you are vulnerable because your move is 20 frames and Demon Paw is much faster.
Safe on block.
But then he's gonna talk about slide.
One of his best moves I don't see Dragunon players.
But again, like I said, it's a bit. But like I said, it's a little bit matchup dependent. It depends really on the matchup. If you're playing against Brian, if you're playing against Jin, Kazuya, I wouldn't recommend to use forward 3-1+2. If you're playing against another character, like for example King, it could work. So it really depends on the matchup. Also, for
Dragunon players, I keep running into Dragunovs in God of Destruction who do this. Like they'll just they'll just spam sneak 3.
Yeah, he's gonna talk about slide.
That's very, very, very risky. Dragunov's not a character who needs to take big risks like this. Every time you do this, you're taking an unbelievable risk. So that's
yeah, because the move is of course is launch punishable. This is why he's saying you take a big risk.
Down 2 is really good.
It's
full
true.
Crouch 1-4 is really good. Like
however, there is a reason why all of these Dragunon players are using CD3 or sneak free.
Use down back.
Okay, that's Leo. That's the Leo section. There is a reason why Dragunon players, they use CD3. I explained this many times on the channel. If you watch my video, you probably already know about CD3 and the reason why it's so used. He talks about down 2. He said you could use down 2 instead of slide.
Neutral, they'll just spam sneak 3.
I'm going to show you.
I don't like that. That's very, very, very risky. Dragunov's not a character who needs to take big risks like this.
Yeah, you don't need to take big risks. So you can do
that's
down
like a huge
2.
part of your game plan. Maybe chill out on that. Stick to like down 2 is really
down
good.
2. Exactly.
Full crouch.
There is a difference though between down 2 and sneak 3. The difference is in the range. First off, sneak 3 can be set up from range 3. Down 2, usually range 2. It doesn't go further than that. And it's true, it's launch punishable, but unlike down 2, it's neutral on hit and has a strong counter it effect, unlike down 2. And the reason why it's so good is because it's a strong mix-up with running 2. Usually at range 3, that's where you want to apply running 2. But if you always apply running 2, what happens is that if you're playing against a very defensive player, let's say you're playing against Akazuya, he's gonna spam electric. And every time you try to run into, he's gonna spam electric and he's gonna tag you. He's gonna use electrics as a keep out. So CD3 is insanely good to slip under those highs and score a counter it. So it's extremely strong as a mix-up with running 2, and is strong to deal with keep outs. Okay, and another important thing is that that move, at certain point during the startup animation, you are considered in a floating state, which means that, let's say a Brian does an orbital, that's gonna spike you on the ground instead of launching you, because you are considered airborne for a certain amount of frames, you are considered airborne, in an airborne state. So that is also useful, and you can get counter it, of course, because you are in an airborne state. So let's say Brian does 3+4, that is not going to counter it, as long as you are during that specific part of the animation that considers you in a floating state. So it's extremely strong against high keep outs, and mid keep outs, at least you don't get counter it or launched. So it is a bit risky, but down 2 it's not really an alternative, because down 2 has to be used at range 2. CD3 can be used at range 3, which is amazing, because it's exactly where you want to be when you want to apply running 2. You don't want to be a range 2. So yeah, there are 2 different tools, I would say. There are 2 different tools. Down 2 is an amazing move, but CD3 is very strong, and there is a reason why so many Dragunon players use that move, even though it's launch punishable. But it's the same thing for Feng Wei's down back 3, right? It's the same thing. It's launch punishable, but Feng Wei's, they will use that move constantly because it's so good. Or, for example, Lee's down 3 as well. And you can technically use slide as, you know, a little bit like Feng Wei's down back 3 or Lee's down 3. If you're quick with the input, you do quarter circle forward 3. It takes a little bit to get into high crush frames. It doesn't go into high crush immediately. It takes a little bit, and sometimes people can float you out of that. But it can be very strong, even, you know, as almost as a panic bot. It's not as exactly, like a little bit as a panic button. It's a bit slow, but it can be used if there is a little bit of space and you think your opponent is going to try to run in and do something. You can do a quick quarter circle forward 3 and counter it them. And the counter it effect is really good. It doesn't launch like a character, for example, like Nina or Alisa. They also have a very similar move. They have a slide, right, that high crushes, and usually it launches. With Dragunon, you don't launch, you get a throw transition, but still it's pretty good. It's actually really good, and down 2 can't really replace sneak free because of the range and because of the strong counter rate effect. That it's exactly what you want with that move. But that's it. This was a pretty quick video. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things he said about Dragunon. I'm not gonna react to the whole thing. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and take care.